Ladies and gentlemen, the champ is here. I found Houdini, Harry Hardwick, Cage Warriors featherweight champion. Harry, we're just over 2 weeks away from your first title defense. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cage Warriors 181 in Newcastle. There's so many cards coming up that the numbers are confusing me. But Cage Warriors 181, and you're about to defend your featherweight title. How is life in the lead up to your fight?
Life is good, just training, grafting. Yeah, I got no complaints.
And obviously, this is the first time we've seen you in action since you won the featherweight belt. It was vacant at the time earlier this year. That must have been an interesting experience because obviously your opponent fell out, and Orlando Prince, who I spoke to earlier this week, he kind of stepped in and at the last minute. Was there a time there where you were worried you won't gonna get that title shot?
Um, like, I, in all honesty, it just bumpers. Like, I didn't really get phased by the opponent switch up and this and that. I guess knowing Orlando was about and that there would be someone who would take it did make it easier. But I don't know, like when the original opponent pulled out, I was just totally content with well, I can't control this. I can control what I'm doing in the gym. So I just got my head down and just trained and just kept working, kept grafting, just being a bit more because my original opponent for that fight was a southpaw. And then I was like, all right, well, some of that stuff may have to go in the bin, may not, but I just sparred more orthodox fighters and stuff. It wasn't disastrous. Like I didn't really let it get to me.
I find that interesting because I talked to quite a few fighters in situations like this, and some fighters attribute a lot to, the switch up in opponent. I trained for this guy and then this happened. And then there's other fighters like yourself. And I mean, that was quite short notice, wasn't it? Refresh me memory. How close to the fight was the change in opponent? It was pretty close, am I right?
Yeah, so I think the original opponent pulling out might have been just under a week before Orlando took it, or they offered the fight to Orlando. The bout agreement for Orlando was 10, 12 days out, I think. Um, I think it was 10 days out. And like the day that bout agreement come through, I absolutely knackered my rib. Like I've still got a lump on it now. I don't think that's ever going away. It was from like grappling as well. I tried a headlock throw, a crack technique, James Hendon of all people, and I just like completely buggered my rib and couldn't do any sort of like live rounds or any grappling or anything. So I was just like, right, whatever game plan we're going to do, it's going to have to be in kind of controlled pad work scenarios. But I'm fairly confident that I'm a harder person to game plan for on short notice than most people. So I was just like, nah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fighters can kind of get a sense of panic or something like that when that happens. But obviously, that kind of mindset that you have there, it's worked for you. I mean, you got your hands on the belt, and obviously, you've been in the promotion. Was it something like 3 years or more even now? It
Yeah.
must have been that must have been a special moment for you to reach the apex of the division, having spent a large chunk of time developing and growing inside that promotion, and then all of a sudden you're right there. I mean, there's already a belt in your family, and then you reach that moment. It looked like you were really enjoying it in the cage afterwards.
Yeah, it was special. It took a while to get there. Like there was lots of awkward things just with how the division was before I had my title fight. But the fact that I got a headline in as close to my hometown as you're going to get, really, Middlesbrough doesn't have an arena. Like it all works out perfectly. So I'm very grateful for that and for how it worked out. But I know none of that would have happened had I not just kept my head down, kept grafting, kept improving. Um, took a fight that was a non-title fight when I was the number one contender and all that kind of stuff. I understand that to have the good fortune of being able to have moments like that comes from getting my head down and grafting.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about the division in and around over the last couple of years, the Cage Warriors featherweight division. there was that log jam at the top of the division there for a little while, wasn't there, with Hughes and Charrier and Vucenic and all of that. But I think in a promotion like Cage Warriors, things can change really, really quickly. Just the nature of the promotion, the fact that, once you get to the position that you find yourself in now, options open up to you. And obviously, fighters at the top of the division. I mean, my teammate James Sheehan has kind of found himself in that situation as well. There was a whole army of people at the top of the welterweight division, Oban Elliott among them, and all of a sudden, a handful of them just, they're gone, and then that path is open all of a sudden. So sometimes, like you said, it's about kind of just knuckling down and staying consistent, and you got to reap your rewards. And speaking of like reaping your rewards, you're now getting to come back to that same arena, close-ish to your hometown, and you've got a huge fight in front of you here. I've been looking at this guy, Keweny Lopes, and they're not giving you an easy first title defense, are they?
No, definitely not. But I'm very confident I have the tools to dismantle him, like to take him apart. Um, he's from a good gym. He's on a good winning streak. He's knocked a bunch of people out. He's won titles in other organizations, but he is not. Uh, he's not got the same quality of craft as I do, and over his shot, his chance at winning this is if you can try and land something big in round one, which I'm going to be very aware of. I can win this every second of every round of the fight. Um, I genuinely believe he is in for a shock when he comes to Newcastle, not just because of the weather, but just I think actually when he gets in the cage, he is in for a shock.
Sao Paulo and Newcastle are two very different climates for sure. Like, I've got a girlfriend from that part of the world, and like I don't get to go out anywhere at this time of year because she just can't handle it at all. It's like, what are we doing this weekend? Nothing. Okay, that's cool, no problem. And then if we do have to go somewhere, she just complains about the cold. So, I mean, that's certainly something that could play an advantage or play a part in this fight. But your thoughts on the kind of stylistic matchup is exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this guy. As you mentioned there, he's fought in some good organizations, and he throws those big bombs, and they are very effective. But with your own fighting style, I mean, you like to kind of get on the front foot, don't you, and really give your opponent problems to answer rather than allowing them to think about their own sort of approach.
Yeah, and he does like to sort of step back and like it's weird because he likes his thinking time, but then I'm not going to say he doesn't throw straight shots. He almost works backwards. It's like a lot of people will go like the straight down the pipe stuff first to set up the big hooking power shots, whereas he will start with his big wingy hooking shots and then will catch people off guard by pinging one down the middle. It's a bit of a sort of subversion on a lot of people's expectations, and I feel like that's how it lands. I also just feel like a lot of people who's fought have been scared of him. He had a fight that went into the fourth round in a French organization, and the guy dropped him. The guy who was fighting, but the guy who was fighting was almost like terrified and trying to end the fight with a combination he threw and just gassed really badly. Whereas I'm not about that. I throw combinations in a way where I'll get a lot of damage downstream, but I will not gas myself out or put myself at too much risk doing it. Like, yeah, but he is a tough challenge, and even in that fight, he gassed really bad. He was still throwing. Like, he's still he's still got a heart in there, but I just don't think he has encountered anyone like me.
Yeah, and I've been talking to a couple of fighters recently, Paul Hughes, of course, who we mentioned earlier in particular, and talking about how, facing tough fighters and really dangerous fighters and people of a high skill level can really elevate you and help prepare you for moving on maybe to that next level in your career if that option is there for you. So when someone finds himself maybe in your position of winning a Cage Warriors belt and defending it, it's generally a sign that you're more than likely ready to to test the waters and see what's out there for you. We all know what the next step is usually is for those type of fighters. Without looking past this fight, which is probably boring thing to say, everybody really does look past it a little bit. What's the bigger picture for Harry Hardwick?
I mean, I want to be in the UFC and I want to be fighting in the UFC. That is my goal. That's my dream. Like, so, there's never been a UFC fighter from Middlesbrough, from Teesside. Me and George, you got to be the first. We have to be the first.
Ross Pearson, he
So
wasn't from up that direction, was he?
he was from Sunderland.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Massive
been
company.
quite a few from Sunderland, some from like County Durham, some from Newcastle, but never from Teesside. Um, Me and George have got to be the first. We just have to. It's just how it works. But if the UFC doesn't come a knocking after this one, I might see what I can do. See if I can try and convince Graham to put a Cage Warriors on at the Riverside Stadium. I know Cage Warriors 200's around the corner, so if we can get something like that, that'd be cool. But no, the long term picture is I want to be in the UFC. I want to be scrapping those people.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen George, of course, compete on the Contender Series, and he got a very tough fight, and it was a real battle, that one, and it's obviously you can get thrown in there against no real control over who you're going in there against. Would the Contender Series be something that would kind of tickle your fancy if the opportunity arose?
I think with the way that the UFC is at the minute, you're not getting signed unless it's short notice or Contender Series generally. I'd be up for that. Obviously, we need to right the wrongs of what happened last time with George. I feel like George gets another title defense. I get this title defense, maybe another one. I feel like the Contender Series will potentially be an option for us both next year. Um, but yeah, like it was obviously disappointing what happened, but it was a really off day for George. He's not into the excuses and that, but like we just made loads of mistakes as far as the first fight in America goes. We were thinking, oh, a lot of people talk about this water retention from flights. It doesn't really happen, and we over respected it. Came in way too light, like considerably lighter than he normally does. The diet that he had to put him down there was like it actually showed up that he was anemic on the Nevada Athletic Commission's blood tests. Like he fucking gave himself anemia dieting, and then El Salvador just fought really well, really subverted our expectations. It was a pretty decisive um, decision, but like we can take from that on a shit night in the office for George, he fought someone doing the best performance of their career, and it was still like fairly competitive. George, obviously, since then has become a considerably better athlete, technically miles better. Um, Obviously, we got to see a fair amount of it, but we didn't get to see all the technical developments and improvements he's made in his last title defense. You'd have liked to finish, but going all the 5 rounds after having the year out with the Contender Series thing and the jawbreak and stuff, I think it was just good for him to get that cage time under his belt. But yeah, Contender Series would be nice. We could right those wrongs.
Last one, then. The timing of this fight is excellent. I mean, I've known many fighters over the years who've had to fight early in the year, like end of January or something like that. And I mean, that kind of puts it really tests your discipline, having to go through the Christmas months, having to just ignore your Christmas. My teammate Paul Redmond fought 4 years in a row on Cage, or 3 years in a row on Cage Warriors on New Year's Eve. And then the fourth year, there was no New Year's Eve show. So he took the Christmas off, he got fat, and then the UFC came and knocking in January, and he had to cut 33 pounds in 12 days for his UFC debut. So the timing of your fight, this is perfect. You get one more in before the end of the year, and then you can kick back and carb up over the Christmas. It's good luck, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? It is good. It's been a while since I've had like a late November fight, but yeah, November's a good month to fight in. Because obviously we do a lot of coaching, a lot of, like helping run the gym and stuff as well. So like December's normally a quieter month in that regard as well. So I kind of just have a bit more of a chill month, really. Like go from fight prep to fat prep. um, but like there is that, but then there is a certain level of peace when you're in fight camp. As weird as it sounds, that I think when I retire, I'm gonna miss. Like I really genuinely do love preparing for fights and like like having to push yourself and having to get past certain little like milestones. Like all right, earlier in fight camp, this I was getting tired doing this, so I was struggling to escape this position, or and stuff like that. And then later in fight camp, you're like, oh, things are gelling together, and just the sort of structure and the discipline of it. I really, really do like being in fight camp, but but I do love a good treating the several weeks before Christmas as binge weeks. So I'm pretty happy either way.
Hopefully this year you get to relax and enjoy the whole experience. It'll be good, and with a bit of luck, you'll still have that belt over your shoulder as well, so you can kick back and really feel satisfied with your year's work. That's all. I'll keep you. That's as long as I'll keep you today. I'm glad I got to talk to you a couple of weeks out from the fight. I really like to do that. Get it out of the way before fighters start getting dehydrated and hungry, because can't be as nice to deal with, or the conversation doesn't flow as well when someone's tired and hungry and grumpy. At least now you're maybe just a bit tired from training, but you got a belly full, so we're good to go. Best of luck next week, or best of luck in 2 weeks' time, I say.
Thank you very much, brother. Thanking
Appreciate your
you.
time, man.
Welcome, man.